You're listening to the Courage Hotline with Candace Doby. Thanks for hanging out with me, y'all, on the Courage Hotline. I'm your host, speaker, author, and leadership development strategist, Candace Doby. And I'm really excited to be your courage coach for this show. If you have not done so, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an upcoming episode. And if you're out there and you love this podcast, I know you love it, do me a favor and leave a rating and a review, because when you do that, you are helping the platform you are listening to this podcast on know that this content is valuable. And then they'll share it with more people who need to activate their courage at work and in the world. Now, on this podcast, if this is your first time listening, check it out. I serve up candid advice to callers who need help doing hard things in their professional lives. Things like, giving the critical feedback or setting boundaries and speaking up in intimidating spaces. On each episode, y'all, I draw upon a decade of research on courage to help the people put their fear in check and their feet in motion. That's right. And I do it, y'all, with the same signature blend of truth, love, and shade that captures audiences when I'm speaking on stage. All right, I am ready to spill the courage tea, honey, so here we go. We got a question in from Patty, who has written into the show, and here's her question. In healthcare and medicine, leadership does not seem to take courageous ownership from medical staff as well as we would hope. For example, speaking up about low staffing can sometimes lead to our ideas being dismissed. Yet the feedback and ideas and creative problem solving really does come from the providers doing the work. Are there different methods or strategies to convey one's ideas and actions? Is there different language we can use? I'm not sure what language you are using, and I bet there is different language that may help you to be heard better. Let me say this before we get into it. I know that there is some nuance to the healthcare field that I may not know about. I do know because I've read there's low staffing related to COVID, and medical staff have quit because they were overworked and they've left the field completely. And that leaves a smaller pool of candidates to even hire from. So I know that there is some nuance to the field, and I'm going to answer your question based on what I know about courage. So please take what resonates with you and leave the rest. So the question really is about how do you change your language to influence someone else, and in your case, your leadership team, to take courageous ownership of some of the problems on the team, like low staffing. So if courage is needed to own this issue, then it's because there is a risk. Courage, at the end of the day, is all about risk. So that's what I want to call out front so that we understand that. So owning this issue could be a risk to the leadership team. It could be a financial risk if they were to hire up. Maybe there's not really money to add additional headcount to the team, even though they know they need to. There could be a risk to the ego, meaning owning the issue of low staffing would mean that the leadership team has to admit that they did something wrong, that maybe their projections were off, or they let people go when they shouldn't have. They made some kind of miscalculation, or they made the wrong call. Now, admitting that is a hit to the ego, which oftentimes people want to avoid. So lots of companies in the pandemic or mid-pandemic made decisions to hire up, and now they're conducting layoffs. So, I think it's worthwhile to understand that if the leadership team needs to courageously own the issue, it's probably because there is some risk. So before you shift your language, I think it's helpful to shift your perspective. So often when we're the ones who are really feeling the heat, when we're the ones who are overworked and underappreciated, and we're feeling undervalued, we can go into conversations where we want to ask for help with us only in mind. So we think primarily about what we need and what we have to lose. And what we might have to lose, in your case, Patty, it's your mental health. It could be sleep, vitality, clarity of mind, and all kinds of things. And let me tell you, boo, you absolutely need to be thinking about all of those things. When we have to rely on someone else to help do something about it, there's something else that we need to consider, and that is, what they might lose. What might they lose from addressing the issue of more staffing? Professional esteem from themselves or others if they have to admit a miscalculation. Maybe they lose time. Adding a posting and vetting candidates and training, that is all time. Maybe there's the risk of losing money or losing ease. To be really honest and really real, figuring things out takes effort. And there's a term called satisfice or satisficing, and it means that you accept an available option as satisfactory. It will suffice. And so maybe your leadership team has decided that because the risk of losing money or losing ease or losing time is too much. I can hear my sister-in-law in my head right now. She is a registered nurse, and I hear her saying, well, if they don't address this issue, they are going to lose, and they're going to lose me. Boop, boop. Patty, did you just say that to yourself? I think I heard you just say that to yourself. And this is true. This is what they might lose if they don't take ownership, which means they might have to end up investing the time and energy and effort anyway if they lose more people on their team. See, this is the beauty of courage, and this is why I am a student of courage, because to act courageously, you've got to make plain and make clear what you might lose. Knowing what your leadership team has to lose actually helps you level up your creative problem solving that you mentioned in your question. Because what you've done is you've considered how not only you can win, but how they can win or minimize their losses too. And you can actually have a conversation with them about this so that you don't have to guess. You can ask them what they have to lose by addressing some of the issues that you and your team members have brought up. So now when you go into the conversation, you can say things like, I've thought about ways to address low staffing that releases the pressure on current staff and doesn't require a huge time investment. So you've just addressed something that they're thinking about that they might lose. Or you can say things like, I know how important efficiency is to the leadership team, which is why this might be the best way to address staffing. So in addition to all of this, let me just say this, Patty. One of the reasons we don't take courageous action, or in your case, courageous ownership from your leadership team, is because we don't understand the risk. So what you can do to help them understand the risk on both sides is a strategy that can help you be heard louder and more clearly in the conversation. Thanks so much for writing in, Patty. I definitely hope this helps. I want to share with you that I've got a special retreat coming up. It is called the Own Your Brilliance Retreat, and I created it specifically for Black young professional women who are ready to conjure the courage to show up and step up and speak up at work without apprehension or apology. In 2 power-packed days, participants learn and leverage my process for managing fear, activating personal courage, and taking risks so they can spend less time and energy censoring or hiding themselves, and more time demonstrating their brilliance. If this sounds like it's for you, then let me say this. Listen up. It is time to stop playing games with your potential. If you're interested in attending or sponsoring a participant, please visit CandaceDoby.com for more information.
Hi, Candace. During this time in my life, I'm going through a process of finding the importance of setting boundaries. However, I still am a bit fearful of setting boundaries with family members because I feel like I have to, appease them, or I have to do things that they ask me to do, or I can't say no to them. And so I'm wondering how I can find the courage to set boundaries for not only strangers, but also people that are really close to me without me having a fear that they will dislike me, or that they'll think that I'm a poor family member or a bad family member because I've now set up a boundary that they can no longer cross.
Let's be honest, it can be hard to act courageously when we're dealing with family because we have to see them at the Thanksgiving dinner, or even sleep in the same house with them, or maybe even depend on them to pick up our kids from school while we are at work. Our family is the closest to us. They are our community, our support, our group, our people. And we don't want to be separated from the group, even if it means neglecting ourselves or our boundaries. I have seen this, I've heard it, I've experienced it for myself, and you said it. There are really two fears that you call out in your question that you are dealing with, and that is the fear of judgment and the fear of rejection. So I want to deal with those two fears for a second. And I actually wrote about these and one other fear, the fear of failure, in an article on my website. It's called The 3 Fears to Manage for Professional Growth. So go check it out. The first fear, though, that I want to talk about is the fear of judgment. And so the fear of judgment, or it's called fear of negative evaluation in psychology, it has a psychoevolutionary foundation and purpose. So negative evaluations apparently decrease social status with the risk of ultimate social exclusion. So if we think to way back, okay, and our ancestors who needed the group for survival, negative evaluations are something that you really didn't want because they would decrease your kind of ranking in the group, and it would increase the risk of you being just outcast or put out from the group. So this fear of negative evaluation, it supposedly serves the function or purpose to avoid downward shifts in social hierarchy. And now in your case, these downward shifts are in the family hierarchy, which yes, there is some kind of social component to families. Okay, families are like little societies, little organizations. So you have people with more authority than others in the family. There are rules and power dynamics. There are people who have different skills and abilities, so you actually need each other to work together and function. So it's quite normal and natural for you to have the fear of judgment be something that is coming to the surface as you are dealing with this issue. The other thing is the fear of rejection. So fear of social rejection is innate. Okay, it's a part of being a human being. As humans, we learn to demonstrate pro-social behaviors so that we can go along and get along with the group. I have learned so much of our brains are devoted to social interaction. So at the root of both of these is the fear of losing social connection. So now what we're going to do with all of that is we are going to acknowledge it as real and human. And so now we're also going to acknowledge that your ability to grow and develop into the fullness of your potential and power requires you to establish boundaries, full stop, period. If not, what's at stake? What's at stake is your ability to capitalize on opportunities at work and in the world. What's at stake is your opportunity and ability to rest and to dream and to honor yourself and to do more of the things you enjoy doing rather than the ones that you don't. So here are a couple of things that I actually want you to know. The first thing that I want you to know about courage is this. It does not, hear me again, courage does not guarantee success or optimal results. It only guarantees that you will open the door to possibility. More possibilities than you currently have access to from not enforcing your boundaries. So yes, your mama may look at you sideways from enforcing a boundary. Yes, your partner may give you the silent treatment for enforcing your boundary. Those things may happen when you act courageously. So the question is, do you have the competence and confidence to deal with those things happening? Because they're very real risks that are a part of this situation. So one resource that I want to focus on with you is the ability to be uncomfortable. Have you built up the ability to sit and stand and settle in your discomfort? Huh? Yeah, see, this is a skill that you can learn and become familiar with. And what you are familiar with, you can manage. So my suggestion would be to acknowledge and entertain opportunities that pop up daily to be uncomfortable. You have to actually sit next to someone that you're not trying to sit next to. You have to give remarks in front of your coworkers and nobody gave you a heads up. You have to acknowledge the discomfort that you may feel and take up space in it. You recognize how it makes you feel without judging it. Then you can start to tame discomfort. It might sound crazy, but I actually court opportunities to be uncomfortable all the time because I am interested in flexing and working out that muscle so that I can make it stronger. So now let's get into some technique. We're going to use the example of saying no. And I want to use that as a boundary, example of a boundary, because I know it's one that many people have. They want the ability to say no, but feel like they can't. And a key reason why people don't say no is actually because they don't know how, meaning that they literally do not have the words to say it. And so what I want you to do as a way to practice setting a boundary or creating the competency to enforce a boundary is I want you to write down 3 ways to say no that feel honest to you and reflective of your voice. Here are a couple of examples. It could sound like this. Thank you for that invitation. I just don't have the energy to participate today, but I hope to be able to next time. Or it can sound like this. I'm sorry you're having trouble with that. Honesty is really important to me, so I won't be able to help you with that situation. Or you can write down a way to say no that sounds like this. I won't be able to execute that fill in the blank activity at the high level it requires, along with the other priorities that I'm already committed to. So I'd love to be able to work on it at a later time. Now, obviously, I wrote those down, and so I'm able to read them to you, and that is what I'm asking you to do. Part of setting a boundary, especially if that boundary is saying no, is literally just having the words to say it. So here are a couple of things that I want you to remember as you craft your own ways to say no. Number 1, being straightforward in your response makes it more effective. So don't hold back the real reason why you are saying no. A second tip to remember is that you can give other options that better fit your needs. So if the request coming in your direction is a no for you, you can actually give another option that would maybe help that person out in another way that absolutely fits your needs better. And the third thing that I want you to remember is that you can try to preserve the opportunity to work on a specific task or project at a later time. So you can tell the person no because the timing is not great for you. And maybe there's an opportunity for you to work on it later. So those are 3 things to keep in mind that you might be able to use with your family or in the workplace. I hope that has given you some helpful information that you can put to work in setting and enforcing your boundaries. We're going to end today's show with a little bit of courage candy. These are the bite-sized insights on courage that you can stick in your pocket, tuck in your purse, and pull them out whenever you need a taste of courage motivation. Here is a courage hack that a lot of people try that never works with courage, and that is they want to take the good that comes with courage and leave behind whatever is less than ideal. See, we try to take possibility with us and leave potential problems where they are. We say things like, I want to achieve this really important personal goal that will help shape how I show up in the world, but I don't want to deal with a tinge of resistance. Spoiler alert. This is not, hear me when I say, this is not how courage works. That would be too easy and quite honestly too boring. Courage is unconventional and rebellious, just like you on some levels. So the question becomes, what can you do to ready yourself for the not so warm and fuzzy outcomes that could accompany courageous action? First, you clarify them so that you can calculate them. And you calculate them so that you can control them. And then you take responsibility for whatever happens. All right, peeps, that's it for today. If you heard me say something that really resonated with you, please drop me a line in the form of a review. And of course, share this podcast with your friends too. If you have a question that you want addressed on the Courage Hotline, visit couragehotline.com for more information on how to submit your question. Now, if you need more help conjuring your courage than what this episode provides, check out my website, CandaceDoby.com, to see how we might be able to work together. I'll see you next week for another episode. This podcast is written and recorded by Candace Doby. It is produced by the Can Do Company, and the music was created by Lamara Shirley.